My name is Carl Gregory and I've personally worked with huge creators to launch multi-5-figure live events like with Fuller Mo, and I've also been part of 6-figure operations like with Charlie Morgan. In this video, you'll walk away with the hindsight I wish I had when I was launching my first few live events for my clients, so you can shortcut straight to 50k plus months. I thought about the 7 most important mistakes or lessons I've learned I want to share with you here today, so you can shortcut the time it takes for you to get to your goals. The first biggest mistake or lesson I learned is that offer is everything. How you frame your product or service and the bonuses you have surrounding it is literally the most important factor in conversion rates. And I realized this recently with one of my clients. This was Fuller actually. With one webinar, we ended up doing a 0.08% in conversion rates. Horrible, I know. But in another webinar, we ended up having a 1.27% conversion rate. See, now that huge difference is what, almost like not even a 10x, like a 15x difference almost in conversion rate. That is due to how we framed the product and the bonus we had surrounding it. The second lesson I learned is that you should always do a practice run before the main event. When it comes to game day, you literally don't want a single thing going wrong. So in order to prevent that, always do at least 1 or 2 practice runs before you go live. So you can first off find out how long is this taking you. Is there anything you should cut out? And if you have any technical difficulties, you can fix them before you go live. For example, I remember with one of my clients, we actually ended up doing a practice run before the main event. I think it was like a few days before. And whilst we're going through that, I kind of sit as like a viewer, typing in chat, making notes of things. After we did that, he ended up changing a quarter of the slides because one, he realized there's stuff he should cut out and stuff he should add in. So that when it actually came to launch day, when he's presenting to the population, the masses, he was so much more confident and we had a much better conversion rate, largely due to him already having a feeling for what's coming up and just because we actually cut the fluff and only kept in what was needed. The third huge mistake is something I actually don't see anyone talk about. For some reason, I don't know why anyone talks about it. They kind of just like avoid this topic like it's not an issue. But it is. The third one is that your emails or the email you're using to send out needs to be warmed up and all the DNS records need to be correct. The number of registrants, so how large your event can be, is actually proportionally tied to the quality of your email. Because if you are sending out emails and they all start landing in spam, you've hit your capacity and you can't send out anymore. So if your email can't send emails up to 500 people, then you can't even have a 500-person event. And if you're paying for that traffic, all these people to go register and stuff like that, you'll end up wasting your money because they can't even get contacted. They won't even get their live link. Be so aware of that. Unfortunately, this did happen to one of my clients. That's so annoying. But in the run up to the event, he decided he wanted to use a different email. So he started warming that up 1 month before this time. And he did that because he wanted to separate the audiences from what he usually sells to what this webinar was, right? The workshop. Now, over the days in the run up to the webinar, we were sending out a few emails to a few registrants. So we didn't really see any issues. However, 12 hours before, when the bulk of registrants come through, we're now sending emails out to 3,000 plus people with links to the room. They all started landing in spam. Like, I think from about 3,000, I'll put it on screen if I can find it, about 2,900 emails were sent out and only 200 were opened. That's a 10% open rate. Now, we realized in the moment that this was due to DNS records being wrong, but even after the event, we got messages from people saying they never even got a link. They never even got the confirmation email. So they could have never even attended. So moral of the story is make sure you use an email that is capable of sending out a lot of emails without landing in spam. So it has to have a good sender reputation. So this might even be an incentive for you to actually start that email list you've been thinking about this year, because you want to start getting that email you're sending out a bulk amount of emails. The fourth lesson I learned, and I actually wasn't doing this at first. It wasn't one of the first things I did. And I decided to do it during the run up of like a webinar. I think after 2 days in, me and my client decided, oh, we should add this. It was adding a survey onto the thank you page. It's usually best practice to have something you can upsell, like maybe it could be like a book for $27 or something like that. Or like I said, a survey. And it's not something I originally did. So but like a lot of this stuff, but I eventually learned it. And yeah, very, very beneficial because we were able to get a lot of early data on who we were attracting to the webinar. And at first we were thinking, right, we're attracting a lot of high quality ICP here who will jump onto the webinar, sorry. But then after that data came through, we realized that a lot of the people were beginners and they didn't have the purchasing power for the products we wanted to sell. So with this data, it allowed us to tweak our messaging, start attracting a higher quality prospect. And with that, we were able to build a 10 times better offer purely for the people we actually wanted to sell to because they could afford it. So even if you have the best thing on earth, if they can't afford it, they won't buy it. Like, let's say you're offering a one-on-one thing, you meet them in person, you fly out or you fly them out, you 5-star meals, everything, but it's 10K. But they don't have 10K, they don't have £100 in their bank account. It doesn't matter how good the offer is. So don't lose hope or lose conviction in your offer because you could be speaking to the wrong room, the wrong audience, and we realize that. So make those tweaks and it just ends up being 10 times smoother. Now this is a really interesting one, and this is the 5th mistake or like lesson I've learned from launching live events, virtual live events, workshops, webinars, all that type of stuff. And it's that guarantees aren't as effective as they used to be. Now, the main reason you offer a guarantee is to increase someone's likelihood of achievement, right? And reduce the potential sacrifice from them going down this path of using your product or service. Now, if you already have a ton of proof and people already believe in your product and that it does work for them, you don't need a guarantee. It's actually not an incentive and it won't increase buying action. It won't increase decision making because they already believe it will work for them. So this just means when people are actually buying it, they already know that they can get the result they want. So a guarantee doesn't make a difference because when people are buying it, they actually want to get the result because they already believe they're not going to lose money. They just want to get the result. And I realized that the guarantee wasn't as effective as I thought it would be when we, again, had another live event, got to the pitch section. And on the previous webinar, we offered like a one-on-one Loom review of their like brand design, like a type of consultation thing. And that had a way better take rate than the product having a guarantee with it. And that is also because this product has never ever had a refund either. So clearly it's not something that people are returning and it's not a product that people are just trying out. When people are actually buying it, they are committed to using it and I'm going to stick with it until they see results. This is just about getting them to take that action of using it, of trying it, and then they'll stay forever. So guarantees aren't always the best bonus or incentive. Think about what else you can do in order to reduce the risk, effort, and sacrifice for people so that they believe when they buy it, they are more likely to get the result they want. And really think about the result that you're trying to get people, because a guarantee doesn't always guarantee that they'll get the result they want, just that they won't be in a worse off position. The 6th most important lesson I've learned is that the post-webinar email flow leads to 50% of your conversions. So on the webinar, you'll have half your conversions, and after the fact, you'll have another half. So the emails you send out in that time period or the messages or the actions you take after that time period is literally the most important time besides during the actual webinar. Now, we usually do a 72-hour sequence that includes 7 emails. So they have 72 hours to take action on the bonus that we are offering along with the product. Otherwise it goes back to its either original price or original thing without the bonuses. Now here's the general structure we do. So immediately after the webinar, we send out their show up bonus. Then 12 hours after that, we send a replay. And then 24 hours after that, we just basically remind them of how good the product was, everything that came with it, all that type of stuff. And 36 hours after the webinar, we take a FAQ that was answered on it and basically have the answer inside the email. So let's say a question that was in it is like, how do I start as a beginner, for example? Then I'll have my client's answer there. So basically your answer on the webinar. That's what we do 36 hours after. 48 hours after, we remind them they have 24 hours left and basically just tell them about how good the product is again. 60 hours after, we then say, we do another FAQ thing again. So answering an FAQ that we answered on the webinar. 1 hour before it ends, we basically say you have 1 hour left and you remind them how good the product is. Very, very simple structure. And I actually found that on the emails where you're answering FAQs, that actually led to the highest purchase rates. So play around with this, like don't just stick to this die hard, because I'll continue to test it as well. But actually providing value in the post email flow sequence or answering people's questions that are kind of holding them back from buying is huge. So don't neglect that and yeah, use them in your emails. And the 7th, probably one of the most important things, like honestly, one of the most important things. And I don't know why, but it just is. Never ever call it a webinar. Never call it a webinar, since it just comes across as salesy. Call it a workshop, a live event, a free training, a masterclass, anything but a webinar. Because when my client was calling it a webinar, the difference in registrants was 10x. When he started calling it a workshop, it went from a post got around 30 registrants to getting 300. Nothing changed except what he called it. And it's a story post. So be very mindful of how you frame it and position your webinar, because you don't want to call it that. That's why I call them virtual live events, to get into the habit of calling it something else. You do not want to call it webinar, please, anything but.